Congress. We've had one of the most productive Congresses in the history.
Mike Johnson completely lost control of his caucus this morning. He had a 4-person rebellion. Maybe it'll be even more once this ACA subsidy vote happens, the 3-year extension. Leader Jeffries completely played him, right?
We have 4 Republicans who are willing to vote with us to pass the bill. So we've got the votes. The problem is that Speaker Mike Johnson wants to adjourn the House today.
Intense fellowship. It's all good. Look, we're working through very complex issues as we do here all the time. It's good. Everybody's working towards ideas, keeping the productive conversation going. That's what happens.
Have you lost control of the House?
I have not lost control.
Because this is the third time.
There are look, we have the smallest majority in U.S. history. Okay? These are not normal times. There are processes and procedures in the House that are less frequently used when there are larger majorities. And when you have the luxury of having 10 or 15 people who disagree on something, you don't have to deal with it. But when you have a razor-thin margin, as we do.
She would swear in, I believe in Rahul, whenever she wants. She's written a letter to your office. You've not sworn her in.
Yeah.
You understand about pro forma sessions?
Yes.
Doesn't your resistance to not swear her in add fuel to the fire that this is about the Epstein?
No. Let's talk about Grijalva and Epstein. Okay. Once more for everybody. Everybody in Congress, I think, is for maximum transparency of the Epstein files. That is underway right now. Let me point out before I go forward further, all of the files were in the possession of the Biden-Harris Department of Justice for 4 years. Every single thing that we're talking about right now was in their sole possession. They could have released it. They could have done anything. Ro Khanna, all the Democrats who are jumping up and down making noise about this, didn't say a peep about it for 4 years. I don't know why. But this is another partisan manufactured thing. Is it a serious problem? Yes. I've sat with the victims, some of the ladies who bravely have come forward and talked about the horrors that they sustained because of traffickers on Epstein Island and all the things he was involved in. Everybody involved in that should have the full weight of justice descend upon their head. And we're all for that. We want every single person who had anything to do with that to be exposed.
Any reaction to Leader Thune, seeing the bill without adding amendments or changing it?
I'm deeply disappointed in this outcome. I think I've been at the state dinner. I don't know. I was just told that Chuck Schumer rushed it to the floor and put it out there preemptively. It needed amendments. I just spoke to the president about that. We'll see what happens.
All right, everyone. Mike Johnson completely lost control of his caucus this morning, and his response to the chaos was to literally send the House home early the day before the Epstein files deadline. This is unprecedented dysfunction, and it shows that MAGA Mike is fleeing Washington because he can't get his House in order to the point that even the Murdoch manipulation network can no longer spin it in his favor. Let me break down exactly what happened because this is absolutely wild. Johnson had a 4-person rebellion where Republicans broke ranks to force a vote on extending Affordable Care Act subsidies. Leader Hakeem Jeffries completely played him. Democrats have 4 Republicans willing to vote with them to pass the bill. So they've got the votes. The problem is, Speaker Mike Johnson wants to adjourn the House today rather than allow that vote to happen. By the way, I am trying to do my best to gather all the information I can for you and share it with you. Please leave your likes and comments, and I would be grateful if you subscribed. Let's continue. Think about that. Johnson knows Democrats have the votes to pass legislation that would help millions of Americans afford health care, and his response is to send everyone home so the vote can't happen. He's literally shutting down the House to prevent health care legislation from passing. That's not leadership. That's cowardice. Sure, he's not panicking. It's not like he's sending the House home early a day before the Epstein deadline or anything. Oh, wait, that's exactly what he's doing. Johnson does not want to act on the bill. He knows Democrats have the votes, and he doesn't seem to care that the American people are suffering from rising healthcare costs. This week in Washington has been chaotic to say the least, with House Speaker Mike Johnson repeatedly insisting he's in charge, even as members of his own party openly break ranks and force votes. When confronted about losing control, Johnson's response was priceless. This had some intense fellowship. It's all good. We're working through very complex issues. Everybody's working towards ideas, even though conversation, that's what happens. We have the smallest majority in U.S. history. These are not normal times. He's quite literally the live-action version of the "this is fine" meme. The house is burning down around him, and he's sitting there saying, "Everything's fine, we're just having intense fellowship." It's pathetic. But not to worry, the president gave an address to the nation that had Daniel Dale at CNN, their resident fact-checker, working late through the night. Dale said, "That was a fact-checker half-asleep kind of presidential speech. So many of these claims have been debunked so many times. For example, the president said inflation has stopped. It's not stopped, it's 3%. In fact, September's 3% rate was the 5th consecutive month inflation had increased." Dale continued, "The president also said he inherited the worst inflation, some might say in the history of the country. Again, he inherited 3% inflation in January. Even the 9.1% peak of the Biden era in June 2022 was about a 40-year high, not a 48-year high, nowhere close to the all-time high of more than 23%. He spoke of cutting prescription drug prices by 400 to 600%. Those figures are mathematically impossible. If you cut it by more than 100%, people would get paid to get their medications, which of course is not happening. So Trump's big national address was just lie after lie that could be easily fact-checked in real time. But all distractions aside, earlier this week, 4 Republican lawmakers publicly went against GOP leadership and signed onto a Democrat-led discharge petition to force a vote on extending Affordable Care Act subsidies, a vote House leadership had blocked. Speaker Johnson's response was to say, "I haven't lost control of the House. Why would you ask that?" But even the witch hosts over at Fox News disagreed. One of them said, "That's a very big deal. There's a big chunk of the base that feels seriously let down by the fact that they were promised Epstein files. They had influencers with binders and then nothing until Friday when they're allegedly going to come out." She continued, "I think she's also seeing the fact that the administration is not as successful as they would like themselves to be." Mike Johnson completely lost control of his caucus this morning. He had a 4-person rebellion. Maybe it'll be even more once this ACA subsidy vote happens, the 3-year extension. Leader Jeffries completely played him, right? He didn't go for any of the discharge petitions. He said, "I'm going to wait it out for my 3-year extension." And then he got Fitzpatrick, Lawler, etc. to fold and come over to his side, and now there's going to be a vote. Another Fox host chimed in, "Leader Johnson is not in control of his caucus." When even Fox News is admitting that Mike Johnson has lost control, you know things are bad. And one host noted that Susie Wiles is telegraphing something about how well the administration is doing by going on the record 11 times with Vanity Fair about Trump having an alcoholic's personality and the whole operation being a disaster. And after this chaos, what does MAGA Mike do at a time when healthcare costs are about to spike for millions if no action is taken? He sends the House home the day before the Justice Department is supposed to release the Epstein files in full. Yet again, this looks like another instance of Johnson doing every little thing he can to either delay the release of the files or to make it so that fellow Republicans don't have to be in town to answer to their complicity in this months-long campaign to avoid their release. This is just like how Johnson egregiously delayed the swearing-in of Democratic Representative Adelita Grijalva. When asked why he wouldn't swear her in, Johnson was confronted. "You said last week you would swear her in whenever she wants. She's written a letter to your office. Why have you not sworn her in?" Johnson's response was to deflect to Epstein. Let's talk about Grijalva and Epstein. Once more for everybody in Congress, I think, is for maximum transparency of the Epstein files. That is underway right now. Let me point out, all of the files were in the possession of the Biden-Harris Department of Justice for 4 years. Every single thing we're talking about was in their sole possession. They could have released it. All the Democrats who are jumping up and down making noise about this didn't say a peep about it for 4 years. This is classic deflection. When confronted about his own obstruction, Johnson blames Democrats for not releasing files when they were in power. But Democrats actually passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act that requires release. Trump fought it. Johnson fought it. And now Johnson is sending the House home the day before the deadline so Republicans don't have to be around when the files drop or don't drop. When asked about the Senate passing the ACA subsidy bill without amendments, Johnson said, "I am deeply disappointed in this outcome. I was just told that Chuck Schumer rushed it to the floor and put it out there preemptively. It needed amendments. I just spoke to the president about that. We'll see what happens." So now let's take stock for a moment. You've got a House Speaker insisting he's in control while GOP lawmakers publicly defy him over and over again on major policy issues. You have Republicans unable to cohere around a unified healthcare plan, which is fitting considering their leader has said he's had a plan for almost a decade now. Remember when Johnson was asked if Republicans have a plan to address the Obamacare subsidies? He said, "Yes, proposals to, we can have that ready immediately." Well, it has been more than a month since that interview, and still there is no plan. Remember the moment when late Senator John McCain gave his famous thumbs down that killed the Republican replacement to Obamacare? That was 8 years ago. That means Republicans had 8 years to come up with an alternative, and still there's nothing. After that McCain moment, Trump tweeted that lawmakers should let Obamacare implode, and then they'll be forced to create a new plan. Earlier this month, he posted that Obamacare sucks. But it turns out the centerpiece of the Trump plan is to extend the Obamacare subsidies. That's something Democrats had demanded during the shutdown. But sure, this is the party that's going to lead America into the golden age. Why else would Mike Johnson send the House home early, if not to ensure Republicans are out of D.C. so they can't be questioned about protecting health care, and they won't be around when the Epstein files are or aren't released? One Democratic congressman laid it out perfectly. A constituent in my district in Middletown is going to be paying more for health insurance than he does for his mortgage. Let's cut right to the chase. This is about a vote. Speaker Johnson should be bringing this bill to the floor today. Do you have the courage to vote, or are you going to run and hide? You have 4 of you who stood up and said this is a democracy. This deserves a vote. Listen carefully, American people, how they decry this bill, and yet they won't even have a vote. This Republican Party has spent more time delaying, running, and shutting down the government than passing any notable legislation, helmed, of course, by a woefully incompetent administration. And the thing is, the American people are very well aware of this fact, hence why Mike Johnson is getting ripped on air by his own Republican constituents. One Republican voter called into a show and said, "You have the power to do that." And as a Republican, I am very disappointed in my party, and I'm very disappointed in you because you do have the power to call the House back. You refuse to do that just for a show. Hence why poll after poll shows that even once staunch MAGA members are heading for the exits. Trump's strong approval among his own 2024 voters was 66% in March. Now it's just 50%. That same Fox News network that often does backflips to excuse the president and Republican Party of any wrongdoing is showing the results of their own polls. Fox polling shows voters are still not happy with the economy under President Trump. 72% say national economic conditions are not good or are in poor condition. A new poll shows Trump's approval rating is down to 39%, down 2 points from earlier this month. It's not looking good for the president or in turn for MAGA Mike Johnson. So let's review what's happened this week. 4 Republicans broke ranks to force a vote on healthcare subsidies that would help millions of Americans. Johnson's response was to shut down the House and send everyone home rather than allow the vote. Trump gave a national address full of easily disprovable lies about the economy. Even Fox News is admitting Johnson has lost control of his caucus, and Trump's approval is collapsing. And through all of this, Johnson is doing everything possible to delay or obstruct the release of Epstein files. He delayed swearing in a Democratic representative. He's sending the House home the day before the deadline. He's deflecting and blaming Democrats when confronted about his own obstruction. This is not normal. This is not how a functioning government operates. A speaker who's lost control of his caucus doesn't get to just shut down the House and go home. A president whose approval is collapsing doesn't get to lie in primetime addresses without consequences. An administration that promised transparency on Epstein doesn't get to obstruct and delay without accountability. But that's exactly what's happening. Johnson is fleeing D.C. because he can't handle the chaos he's created. Trump is lying about the economy because he can't defend his actual record, and both of them are desperate to avoid being in Washington when the Epstein files deadline hits, because they know what's in those files, and they know how bad it looks for them. The American people are not stupid. They see healthcare costs rising and Republicans refusing to vote on solutions. They see the economy struggling and Trump lying about it. They see Epstein transparency being blocked and delayed, and they're responding by turning against Trump and Republicans in poll after poll. Mike Johnson sending the House home early is an admission of failure. He can't control his caucus. He can't pass legislation. He can't even keep Republicans from defecting to vote with Democrats on major issues. So he's running away rather than facing the consequences of his incompetence. And Trump's collapsing approval shows that you can't lie your way out of economic reality. When people are struggling with grocery bills and healthcare costs, telling them the economy is great and inflation has stopped doesn't work. They know what they're experiencing, and they know Trump is lying. This is what the end of a failed administration looks like. Chaos in Congress, collapsing approval ratings, obstruction on every front, and leaders fleeing Washington rather than facing accountability for their failures. Subscribe to this channel to stay updated on all of this. Share this video so more people understand what's really happening. And remember, they're counting on you not paying attention. Don't let them get away with it.